emergency for the first time in about...
This is Jim, and
Receiving this message. We are Ken Jennings and John Roderick. We speak to you from our present, which we can only assume is your distant past, the turbulent time that was the early 21st century.
Fearing the great cataclysm that will surely befall our civilization, we began this monumental reference of strange and obscure human knowledge. These recordings represent our attempt to compile and preserve wonders and esoterica that would otherwise be lost.
So whether you're listening from an advanced civilization or have just reinvented the technology to decrypt our transmissions, this is our legacy to you.
This is our time capsule. This is the Omnibus.
You have accessed entry 094.DE1501, certificate number 32691. Balloon Man.
Do you decorate for your kids' parties when they were growing up? Did you put on, it seems like you would.
Yeah, Mindy's kind of an overachiever. We just had an 18th birthday to celebrate, so that was a big thing. That had stringing lights. Mm-hmm. Previously only done to honor our Lord.
Is that right?
Every December. Do you ever put up lights for any other holiday but Christmas? We're not a Halloween decorating household. Well, in a very limited way we are.
Is it because of Satan or something else? The night of demons and so forth?
Yeah. No, we love Satan. We're just lazy.
I see.
Like so many Satanists.
Yeah.
We're just I don't want to go to Home Depot and assemble one of those big skeletons.
It's one of the defining characteristics of Satanists is they're just
yeah, if they really had it together, they would be the state religion of someplace by now.
That's true.
Instead of just sitting in coffee houses.
Think about, why are they not the biggest religion? Because they really are, presumably should be the funnest religion.
Yeah, it should be an easy sell.
But they're so just slow and dull. They don't really.
I think weed is holding back the Satanists.
Oh,
hey Satanists, maybe try No Weed November, a thing I just made up.
I think there is a no. Oh, it's no drinky, no January, but no weed November.
What's the month when you shouldn't?
I like that.
Smoke. I don't.
November. It rolls right off the tongue.
It's right after Halloween. It's the Satanists are just coming off their biggest night of the year, and they can build on that success if they keep their nose to the grindstone. Their big warded witch nose to the grindstone.
What percentage of Satanists are ironic Satanists? That might also be the problem.
Well, the whole thing where the Church of Satan doesn't really believe in or care about Satan, and they're just we're actually for good secular values.
Yeah.
Why you called the Church of Satan? No further questions. They're kind of locked into this branding that they don't love anymore.
Yeah.
But
it's so funny. Just as you said that, I looked over here. My sister cleaned my house, and she's got all of this artwork stacked over here, arranged by size, not by what it is.
By size, yeah.
Yeah. And right on the top of this huge stack of posters is a Beware of Dog sign that when I was 16, I switched the D and the G.
Oh,
because
puckishly.
Because I was a little bit of a ha teen. And it says Beware of God. And somehow it has stuck with me. Of all the things that I should still have.
That's your only juvenilia art that still exists?
This high school Beware of God sign. Pretty good. Pretty funny.
Well, we do have a Jack Skellington we put out for Halloween, but except for that, no real holiday decoration.
But you do write me every year because my friend Brian lives down the street from you, and he decorates like a lunatic.
He's got a couple of giant skeletons, and he does every holiday. Yeah. Those guys celebrate Arbor Day, and they just got Santa'd up as we're recording this. It's always big excitement in the car when we drive by Brian's new look.
Well, coming through your neighborhood not very long ago, right before Christmas, I really noticed that decorating your lawn is a kind of arms race.
Lots of inflatables now.
Lots of them.
But they're just sad during the day. like some Snoopy corpse next to a Santa corpse, and then they come home from work and flip on the thing, and then it's like,
oh, they don't leave them up all day.
What?
It's so lame.
It would drain a lot of power, I guess. It's good for the earth.
But you know the way that that some neighborhoods go crazy and everybody decorates, and then it becomes a thing where people drive by.
You have to pretend to be Jewish to get out of it.
But your neighborhood, yeah, right. You keep all your lights off all the time and just huddle in the basement with one light bulb.
Maybe they'll go away.
But your neighborhood is that thing where it's a big neighborhood, right? It's sprawling. Every fifth house has lost their minds.
Yeah.
And then in between, there are four houses that are like, yeah, we have some Christmas lights.
It's usually the most half thing. It's like one strand wrapped around one bush in a way that maybe they should have just done nothing.
Yeah, there's always two people that don't want to seem lame. And then there's two people that are like, no, screw you. And it makes driving through your neighborhood really like an emotional roller coaster.
But birthdays are worse because you're putting in so much work for like
an unappreciative
2 hours.
kid.
Yeah, 2 hours, and kids that won't even notice.
Yeah.
At least for Christmas, I spend an afternoon putting up 2 strands of lights on the balconies, and I have it down to a science. Mm-hmm. I use zip ties. Mm-hmm. Everything's pre-measured from last year. It always works. But I know it's going to be up for like a month. That's a good use of my time.
In the 1970s and 80s, when we used film cameras, I really feel like some of those decorations were there for the photos because the photo lasts forever. The birthday party lasts 2 hours.
Well, hold on. We're living in a time of more photocentric living.
True.
So are people not...
I bet you
not still taking selfies with their
like people are
party decorations?
When you leave today...
There's whole fake museums now that are not even museums, but it's like...
Just to take pictures.
It's the Museum of Color. It's the Museum of Ice Cream. It's the Museum of Balloons, and it's all just Instagram ops.
I paid $25 for my daughter and $25 for her friend to go to one of these selfie museums because, I got the daughter treatment, and I was like, oh, my sweetie wants to go to a dumb thing. Like, how can I say no? And then it was like $25. I was like, I can easily say no, but it was too late.
You'd already said yes.
And they apparently had a wonderful time.
It's if they didn't call them museums, I wouldn't mind. Right. The museum implies there's some like curation or something.
Well, there is. It's the ice cream room. But the the thing about Christmas lights is 5 years ago over here we bought those ones that look like it's streaming. It's lights, icicle lights that come down, but
they drip as they.
Not that. Well, you can have them do that. They're programmable, but these are like 15 feet tall, and there's a wall of windows here that's kind of floor to ceiling, and we put these lights up that hung down, and they kind of were a curtain between us and looking out.
Inside or outside?
Inside. And then Christmas was over, and we took everything down, except these lights were so good that we just left them up. And then pretty soon it was summer, and we still had these lights.
If you still like them, that's great. But you just lost your Christmas decorations.
Well, yeah, because
now they can't just be holiday-y.
We had them for a full year, and then the cat kind of got in them, and they started to droop. And so then I was instructed to take them down in like October. And then I was instructed to put them back up in December. And I was like, this can't last. So, but I think that, I think having lights up all the time. Did either of your kids ever have lights in their bed or over their bed? Like lights in their
fun
canopy?
string of lights?
Yeah.
We have them in the backyard now. Once, like the same Costco ones that everyone in Seattle has, we have those up, and they're holding up nicely. I think the kids never did it, but I think the ones we just put up for 18th birthday might stay up because they are a fun festive addition to the room.
Yeah. I have lights here on the back of the house that I have primarily just to annoy my neighbors.
Does it work?
I have no idea. I never see them. I'm not even sure they're still alive.
Just in your head, there's headcanon that they'd be annoyed by it.
Yeah, they're the only ones that see it.
What if they love it? What if you've made their lives more joyful?
They might.
You've made the season bright.
That may be true. But at your most recent 18th birthday party, did you have any balloons?
Yes, there was balloon inflation.
Mm-hmm. And what was the style of balloon?
What's the Raising Arizona line?
Only
circular.
Not unless round is funny.
Yeah. Nope, only circular. Yeah, they were. I think they were not as around as funny.
Just regular balloons.
Yeah.
And did you pay for helium?
No, because there's a shortage, right?
Is there a helium short? Oh, because of the war in Ukraine or something? They only make helium in Belarus?
I think just because of physics, like we're running out of helium. I don't want to bum you out.
Whoa.
We already talked about running out of phosphorus.
Dude, running out of helium, what a drag.
It just goes into space. It just flies away. It's so light.
Of course. And it is an element, so we can't just make it out of parts.
You could go to the sun and have the sun make you some helium.
Does helium bond with other atoms and make compounds?
Famously, no.
No, it doesn't.
It hates that kind of thing.
Right,
It's in the column that doesn't hang out with other things.
We can't break apart other things.
Doesn't play well with others.
And it's just coming out of the ground all the time and just going away.
That's why we need cold fusion, not to power anything, but just to replenish the helium thing at Safeway.
Wow, what a harsh toke.
Anyway, I think they were like fun colors, but like maybe black and silver balloons, like kind of like we're having a grown-up party now. It's not a kid's birthday.
Right.
So it had kind of that Playboy Club kind of vibe.
Well, balloons have been used as decoration
Since the dawn of time.
since the dawn of time. The first balloons,
Really?
well, the first balloons were the bladders of pigs and goats that
Fun.
were filled up
With helium.
Oh, probably because helium was abundant then. It was coming out of everybody's.
Safeway hadn't stolen it all
Yeah,
yet.
it just came right out of your ears. But yeah, I mean, balloons are maybe as soon as you have a bladder, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're either going to put wine. Well, your bladder, yes. But if you're, let's say you're going to eat an animal.
You just slaughtered a pig.
Yeah, and your people use all of the buffalo. You're going to look around for something. You're probably not going to want to eat a bladder.
It could be a container. It could become like a canteen or something.
You're going to put wine in it probably first because you're butchering an animal and you're probably all drunk. And then you're like, where we got all this extra wine. But, blowing them up and using them as...
it's in Little House in the Big Woods. I think that Laura Ingalls Wilder used to bat around a
toy first.
And she couldn't even say like a balloon because she didn't know what a balloon is. She was like, we just batted around a bladder like like a air bladder.
Well, they were by Laura Ingalls Wilder time, they were flying in like human beings were flying.
That's true. The thing about her is like, she's not actually that olden days. Like she just had like weirdo parents that were like, let's go camp on Indian land illegally in like the 1880s or something.
I mean, if you think about, I think the word originated, it's definitely like a French word, and I know that just because of the Red Balloon movie.
Ballon,
ballon, ballon, the only word in it.
The kid's very sad when he says ballon.
I still actually say ballon when I feel wistful, and it's just one more thing that nobody understands what I'm saying.
We say it when we see a balloon, so the reference is a little... We don't just say it for a red balloon vibe.
I have a red balloon vibe all the time.
I'm so wistful today.
As I see something that I love going away, I'm like, ballon.
My children are aging. Ballon, ballon.
But I don't think the word was coined until the 16th century. Ballon for this kind of like.
Well, wasn't that the first time that French people were like, let's send one of these into the air?
Yeah. What are we going to do? We're going to tie somebody to this. We're going to fill it. We're going to hold it over a fire and fill it with hot air and then see what happens. Better than helium even. But in the mid-century of the United States, which is a time that we talk about a lot here because it's just before our time.
It seems pleasantly old-timey to us.
Yeah.
Because we're white and
it was an era
we're a little shielded from a lot of the bad stuff.
An era of great technology, a technological advancement. We saw a lot of things come out of that era. And also a time of innocence / ignorance where people had no idea what the resonating effects of some of the schemes they had were going to.
It just seemed like things were going to get better and better because we have jet planes and television.
That's right. And how bad can it be to dump barrels of PCBs into our rivers? Rivers just keep flowing.
Nobody was even thinking about it.
No one was even thinking about it. But if you think about let's say 1960, balloons certainly existed. Helium balloons. They were kind of associated with the circus.
Right.
And also birthday parties, and they were celebratory, and there were balloon vendors that kind of stood out there with a desultory
is that a real
selection.
thing?
Yeah,
and they're helium
balloons
powered, and you always wanted enough of them that you would like launch in the air, but.
Yeah, you'd look. I mean, I think the more balloons a balloon vendor has, the more appealing any one of the balloons is, because it seems like part of a real bunch of.
But it
balloons.
also means he's very unsuccessful. He's got a lot because he's bad at selling them.
Right.
The successful balloon vendor just has like 2 or 3, and he's about to knock off for the day.
But we do feel like a bunch of balloons at a certain point. It feels like maybe they are reproducing asexually. Like a bunch of balloons seems like almost an infinite number of balloons,
and they can have different colors.
Yes.
One balloon is sad because you've got a blue balloon.
Yeah.
A bunch of balloons are a rainbow, a kaleidoscope.
You've got every kind of balloon. My people use every kind of the balloon. But one of the things that brought balloons, I guess, more into the kind of non-circus public sphere,
as it were.
Well, orb, was...
You don't have your bell here in the new...
Ding! I'll find it. It's around here somewhere. Well, there's that bell. You want to give that one a ring and see?
Is it 9 bells already? Is it time to pull up the anchor?
It is a ship's bell, and I am embarrassed to have it be so plainly here.
I would be surprised if you didn't own a ship's bell.
Yeah, I know. But it was the Disney company and the Disneyland, as we call it.
The Disneyland,
when
as
the
it were,
Disneyland came on board,
came online.
There were what were they there originally? There were 5 lands. There was Futureland, Frontierland, Old Town Land.
That's correct.
What were the other ones?
Old Town Road.
There was New Orleans Land.
No, not till the late 60s.
Oh,
I think.
What were the other?
You
lands?
missed. You called Tomorrowland Futureland.
Yeah.
You said Old Town Land, but you'd already said Frontierland, and that's kind of the same land.
They're the same. Okay.
You said there's still the jungly one and the fairy tale one. Do you know what those are?
Jungly one. So there's Fantasyland.
There you go.
And
the most wonderful land of all.
That's right. And Jungle Book Land. What? It's the one where you shoot at the hippo. Adventureland.
They should have called it the one where you shoot at the hippo.
The one you shoot at the hippo.
That's my favorite Friends
And
episode.
they don't do that anymore. We went on it and they don't shoot at the hippo.
I think they still have the cap gun, but they're scaring something.
Yeah.
It's a different beat.
When I went in the 70s, the boat person...
He killed a hippo every 5 minutes.
Just like shooting that hippo with a lot of like, die, die, die.
Wow. Was it Steve Martin?
Those were the times. No, he was probably selling balloons. And that is what Disney wanted, was balloon vendors standing out with a bunch of balloons.
Is that even a real thing? I've seen it. I think I've seen it like 20 times in cartoons for every one time I've seen it in real life.
I wonder whether you walk by balloon vendors and don't register them because you're not the market for balloons.
I mean, is it now just these crappy Mylar ones? Is that why I'm ignoring them?
So the Mylar ones did go through a heyday, which would have been probably the era when you most would have liked a balloon.
Maybe. But you're saying they're gone now?
Well, Mylar balloons really suck, although
they do.
Depending on who you ask, balloons are bad. What are you side-eyeing?
Isn't there something outside your house?
Well, yes, it's all of nature.
No, but somebody walked by or something.
Somebody walked by in my own backyard?
I don't know. I saw a form.
I'm going to get my form.
Go get your hippo gun.
I'm going to find my hippo gun and take it out. Are you sure it's not just a tree?
I have literally no idea what I saw.
Oh, that's even scarier.
Was it the Babadook? No way to know.
Well, keep your eyes peeled.
It's the middle of the afternoon. It's not a scary time here.
Yeah, I don't know. We're in the suburbs. Any time is a scary time because it could be somebody with a leaf blower or a neighbor with a vengeance.
A neighbor with a petition.
Maybe the neighbor who's mad about the lights has finally had enough and he's
Maybe he's just happy. He's like, I just wanted to tell you, I've been enjoying those lights for years.
But Disney, and this is something that maybe people don't know because he didn't I don't think he said this in a lot of interviews, but Disney didn't like circuses. And he wanted...
He didn't lead every interview with this?
No.
Hey, tell us about your new movie.
I hate circus.
Tell us about your new movie, The Jungle Book. Well, I'd rather talk about my hatred for the circus.
But he was very specific to all the people that were starting Disneyland, or, working at Disneyland and designers and stuff.
Don't make it circus.
Don't make it circus.
Do you think he just hated every second they were making Dumbo? The animators were like, now it's set in a tent.
I think he wanted it to be a land unlike...
Where the circus is tawdry.
Yeah,
It's sawdust that smells like piss.
Yeah, and carnies are whatever carnies are doing, having sex and kidnapping kids, or I don't know.
He wanted fewer kidnappings at Disneyland. That was his motto.
When I was a kid,
to all who come to this happy place, you will not get kidnapped like you would at the circus.
I wanted to be a carny so bad when I was 10 years old, and I guess that says a lot about me. Like when
you knew about carnies.
Well, yeah, because when the circus would come to town or the fair, the people that were running the games of chance.
It's a mail truck. Mystery solved.
Oh, the mail truck,
or like a U-Haul or something. Is there a road that goes down there?
There's a little what I guess you would call a road that tracks through that wilderness. And since the pandemic, I think before the pandemic, the people up the road had never heard of things being delivered.
Oh, but now they're super into it.
Yeah, now they're just like, oh, I need a box of tissues, and so there's 15 trucks a day go up that road now. But the road was made in the 60s by like basically one small group of people who had a dump truck. And they basically dumped some dirt over a culvert. And so every one of those trucks that goes up that road takes 15 years off the life of what is already a dead road. And I keep saying, like, one of these trucks is going to go into the river, but nobody listens to me.
I didn't realize that was something you could drive on. This is great podcast content, by the way.
Nice.
People referring to something they saw and you can't, and even they don't know what it is.
There are people around the world listening to this show who are like, I know more about Seattle than I know about my own town.
They know more about your culvert out back of your house than they do about the Space Needle.
But so Disney saw balloons as part of the experience of Disneyland.
You never finished your story about wanting to be a carny. Was there a story there?
Well, I loved the throw darts at balloons.
You thought that was what carnies did all day?
Well, I mean, there are the carnies that run games of chance.
They have to show you the game's not crooked, even though it is.
Yeah, and you throw the ball at the milk jugs and all that stuff. And I just loved all those games so much. They seemed like games of skill. They seemed like old-time sort of games. Like if you could throw a softball and knock over those jugs, you were somebody.
Did you know they were kind of rigged?
Oh, yeah. Okay. And that was fun, too, because the carnies all seemed sort of young, and they were clearly cheating you. But sometimes they would give you a Tony the Tiger doll or a Coke bottle that had been heated up and bent into a snake. Or
that's a good one.
Or a cocaine mirror that had Zeppelin's Zoso album cover on it. Or what was the one? There was the dog, the invisible dog that you would walk where it was a leash and a dog collar. But
the leash is stiff?
Yeah, it was stiff, so it looked like an invisible dog. And then the feather roach clip that was also earrings.
They were giving kids roach clips?
Yeah. Well, Coke mirrors and roach clips were a huge part of the American economy.
It was a huge part of the carny's life. So they're just imagining, what would a kid like? I know what I would like.
Yeah.
I mean, today it's all Pikachus as far as the eye could see.
Right. But no, then it was Coke mirrors with like Queen's Night at the Opera like stenciled on it. But yeah, I really wanted to live that life. I wanted to go on the road. I mean, it was like Steve Martin in The Jerk. I really wanted to be a part of this circus atmosphere.
That's only a trope I know of as a trope, like kids wanting to run away to join the circus.
Yeah.
But I guess it's the only cool seeming thing that ever left anybody's town.
Well, and you could always, at the circus or the fair, you got a glimpse behind the scenes, because behind the scenes was just around on the other side of all these carts.
Yeah.
So there was all the hay. There were all the people that were kind of like, hey, kid, get out of here.
You could see the infrastructure.
Yeah.
If you go to Ice Capades, you're not like, boy, I'd like to run this.
No, but yeah, you could see the big tent, but you could also go behind the big tent. So Disney had balloon vendors that were kind of situated around the park, and the idea of those balloon vendors was to have a big bunch of balloons and to sell them all day. And so there was a group of balloon blower uppers that had a room kind of there in in Old Town Land, like right after you go under the train trestle, when you walk in.
You're saying Main Street.
Main Street.
When you said Old Town Road, or
I didn't
whatever
mean
it was.
Frontierland, where
Main Street.
where there's a roller coaster that looks like you're in a coal mine, or I
Right.
guess a gold mine. No, Main Street. You got Lincoln on the right.
Right.
You've got
Fire station on your left.
Fire station on your left, and you got both sides now are just selling merch like the whole way.
But there was a helium station there at one point?
But it was one of those doors. This is a wonderful thing about Main Street. You see all those doors that are clearly doors to somewhere, but they're not part of the park.
They're not for you.
Yeah, they're like secret doors that lead into the tavern.
They're for cast members, which is what Walt called carnies.
Yeah, right, cast members. One of those doors led to a big room where there was a staff of people blowing up balloons all day.
But not with their lungs.
No, they had helium tanks.
I feel like I'm good at that, by the way. I
Blowing up
can
balloons?
do like 4 or 5 balloons before I start to see like colors and shapes.
Oh, blowing them up with your breath.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at that too.
And
But they don't float for long.
That's the thing. They don't float.
No, and these people were
They're for scotch
crew.
taping to the corners of rooms.
Yeah, that's the kind of balloons. Or, I like a balloon that you blow up and then you and another person bat it around the living room.
Good times.
Playing the don't let it touch the ground game, which, I mean,
Parents love that.
honestly, during the pandemic, that occupied my daughter and me for hours.
You can keep it if you can keep it off the carpet.
Keep it off the carpet.
And if mom doesn't own any Hummel,
That's the other problem. Her mother hated it because we were always at risk of knocking over some shelf of objet.
Yep.
And, but that's one of the wonderful things about a father-daughter relationship is,
it's forged in rebellion.
that's right. And a risk of mother's little porcelain turtles. Ken, if you know one thing about me, it's that I do not like going to the doctor. I'm too busy to go to the doctor. I don't even believe in the doctor a lot of the time. I went 10 years without ever visiting a doctor. And when I finally did visit a doctor, you can imagine how thrilled she was to learn about all the cobwebs she was going to have to clear out just to see what the problem was. And of course, the problem was, I don't know what. I had a broken hand and hadn't dealt with it. I don't remember. It's too hard to find a doctor. And all the time, I wake up with some kind of pain, and I do what people from my family have done for generations, which is ignore it and hope it goes away. But there's now an option for finding a doctor that if this had been here a decade ago, 2 decades ago, I might be a much healthier person today. What I'm talking about, Ken, is ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment. We're talking about in-network appointments. This is the key thing. This is the thing that bounces me out of the system so often. Find a good doctor. Oh, sorry, they're not in network. Find an in-network doctor. Oh, sorry, they're not taking any new appointments. But there are more than 100,000 doctors across every specialty, from mental health to dental health, primary care to urgent care, all on ZocDoc. And appointments made through ZocDoc happen fast, typically within 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. This is a market improvement over the 6-month wait I endured the last time I tried to find a doctor. Oh, yeah, sure, we're taking appointments. How's August, is what they said. So if you're like me and you haven't been to the doctor for a long time, or you've got aches and pains that you haven't diagnosed, or you can't manage to navigate all this insurance hullabaloo, stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/omnibus to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/omnibus. ZocDoc.com. Ken, listen. ZocDoc.com/omnibus. But
back to Disney. Sorry.
Yeah. So they got to the point that crew where they could inflate and tie off 20 balloons a minute. And what I didn't know is at the end of the day, the balloons that they don't sell, they actually bring back to the balloon room, deflate.
Oh, so you can reuse the helium.
Yeah, and no, I think they just spew the helium into the sky.
They don't even make funny voices?
They probably do at first, but then they're like, kid,
I would do it every day. Especially at Disneyland. You're like, hey, Pluto.
Just talking to each other the whole time.
Hey, can you pass me the helium?
I wonder how long you can inhale helium before something bad happens to you. Surely there is a limit.
Well, as long as you're getting oxygen too. Like, the thing that it's changing in your voice is not actually your voice. It's happening in the air. Like you've changed the...
Oh, really?
Yeah, you've changed the way sound waves propagate through the gas.
You're saying it does not change your vocal cords for that
your
period.
Tissues have not been touched.
I had no idea.
I mean, you're still getting helium into your capillaries, I'm sure. So you probably want to mix that with actual air. But no, it's just this. Now the sound waves are going at a much faster frequency because helium's lighter. You can make it lower by finding a gas that has a very low, that is very, it's heavier than
like
air.
Boron or something?
They're pretty dangerous. It's like something hexafluoride. So you have to be careful inhaling it. But it will make your voice low.
But wait, you're saying that you could just blow helium across your face
if there was a way
to
way to talk through helium.
Well, there is. You just waste even more helium. I'm now like a helium preservationist.
You're helium miser.
I didn't know that was gonna happen today.
Your grandkids will not have helium balloons unless you act now.
Well, let me tell you, let me introduce the main character of our story. A young boy named Treb Heining.
Treb? We're supposed to believe there's people named Treb. Is he a Palin?
It does sound like a Palin name. No, Treb.
It's Bert backwards.
Who was the Twitter comedian that always was talking about his Hardy sons?
Oh, Rob Delaney?
Delaney.
Treb, Vip, and Gronk or whatever.
Yeah. No, Treb was a typical boomer child. His parents moved out west and bought a home in Garden Grove because they'd heard that Disneyland was getting built. And they were like, we want to live. Because at first, Disney called it a park.
Oh, they thought it would be free for the community?
Yeah, they thought, they just pictured like, we're going to raise our children in sunny California, and there's going to be this wonderful park that they're going to play in.
Go down and see the fountains and the merry-go-round.
Yeah, nobody, I don't think, understood that Disneyland Park was going to be what it ended up being, right. Although I don't think anybody was disappointed.
I mean, they couldn't predict it would be $180 a day or whatever it is now.
Right. I'm sure at the time you just flipped the kid a quarter and walked on in.
I think that's probably true.
But so Treb grew up around Disney, and he was just a guy that loved Disney and wanted, like I wanted to be a carny, just desperately wanted to be a Disney cast member.
Yeah, it created a more kind of hygienic, cleaned up version of that dream once kids started to have Disneyland to dream about. It's like the opposite of a circus. It's a place with no litter.
Right.
It's a place that's weirdly clean. Whereas the circus was fun, but it was the opposite.
And you'd seen all the movies by that point, so if you got to be Prince Charming, or you even got to be some background character like you already knew and loved.
Did he work at the park?
Well, so when he started high school, which would have been 1969, which was the peak era for clean-cut California kids who had no disagreement with the establishment and were 100% behind the war. He was a freshman, but it was at his high school, was just sort of a rite of passage that when you got to be a senior, you went to the park and got a job as a cast member. And he wanted it so badly, but he was too young. He couldn't get a job at the park until his dad, who was kind of a booster of his throughout his life. His dad had met somebody in business who pointed him toward a man by the name of Nat Lewis. And Nat Lewis had been a circus promoter, but had been hired by Disney, had been clearly instructed to take the circus out of the circus.
But he's some kind of bigwig at the park?
No, bigwig in the sense that he was the merch and sort of decorative designer. And he was behind the balloon room and the balloon boys. And although
Balloon boys.
And although you couldn't get a job at Disney until you were 18, the balloon boys were
The balloon boys in the back room were...
the balloon boys. That was a separate, I guess, contracting job, and you could get a job at 16. Treb was only 15, but he so wanted to work at Disney that he did the thing that I did when I wanted to work in television, which is just go down to the station every day and say, "Are you hiring now? Are you hiring now?"
It's crazy how many success stories there are like that when you read bios.
Yeah.
But we should have all the people that didn't succeed also write bios to get to,
They don't
teach the
write
controversy.
bios because nobody would read them because they're not successful.
Well, that's the thing. They should be like, none of that ever worked for me, and as a result, I lived an ordinary, unhappy life.
It could be a thing that someone writes a book where they do an oral history of they find 50 people that tried and tried, and
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Just to counteract the message that if you're really annoying online,
Yeah.
you'll get that break.
I went there every day for 5 years, and they never hired me.
Finally, they got a restraining order.
Well, Treb went down there not that many times. They realized, I think it was this, maybe the classic story, which was somebody didn't show up to work.
Yeah.
And Treb is 15, but he's sitting there, and they were like, "Hey, kid, put your hat on. You're going out." And so balloon sellers were, I guess, the lowest rung of balloon boys.
What?
And because balloon blower uppers.
You'd have to deal with the public.
Yeah. And balloon sellers had costumes. I think Main Street balloon sellers had straw boaters.
Yeah.
And future.
You had to hear Barbershop Quartet all day.
Right. And I think the lowest of the balloon sellers was in Fantasyland because you had to dress like an elf.
Oh.
And so they put him in an elf costume and they put him over in Fantasyland. And in selling the balloons, he was actually pretty good at it. He said that his technique was if somebody asks you the price of a balloon or wants to know about a balloon, you just get them talking. It's just like every salesman. You don't say, they're 20 cents, and then just stare at them. You go, "I've got, great balloons, and let me tell you, aren't balloons fun?" And blah, 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 until the kid is jumping up and down and dad has to buy a balloon.
Yeah.
And so as a successful balloon salesman, eventually, as a balloon boy, he was really all about, like you were saying, never get down to 3 balloons. Always. And I think this was also part of Nat Lewis's plan. Like, we're going to run balloons out all day long. Every balloon seller is going to have this
An abundance.
an enormous umbrella of balloons. Treb was successful enough that he got a promotion. He went into the balloon room with the senior balloon boys,
Where you can swear and
probably
smoke.
Yeah, and huff helium. And he really sort of got into the speed of tying balloons and producing mass quantities, as the coneheads would say. And they did deflate balloons, save the balloons themselves, put them, I think, in an oven at the end of the day to shrink them back up.
Oh,
so
wow.
that then they could use. Although
Gotta have a balloonoplasty.
yeah, Treb said that yesterday's balloons didn't really inflate with the same kind of like.
You could tell.
Yeah, it was just like, oh,
We were all talking about it in the balloon room.
yesterday's balloons. But Treb, he worked at the balloon. He worked as a balloon boy, but then he decided that wasn't going to be his career. He went off to college.
A balloon boy with big dreams.
He had big dreams. At one point, his dad again kind of came to him. His dad was in, sort of diversified sales in grocery or whatnot, and his dad said, "Hey, they're hiring ex-balloon boys down at the down at the dairy."
They got a sign saying "Balloon Boy Wanted."
And he went down and became a milkman,
Whoa.
delivering milk. And in the process, he had his pick of routes, and he picked the Beverly Hills milkman route.
Sure.
And unlike your middle class milkmen who were putting the milk in baskets out on the front porch, in Beverly Hills,
He's pulling up to a wrought iron gate, right?
Yeah. Well, no, you're invited into the milk back door of the mansion, and you're actually taking your milk into the house. And in the course of that, he met a lot of celebrities because he's bringing milk to Lucille Ball.
Milkman to the stars.
Yeah, to Groucho. And he's in their kitchen and he's putting the milk in the fridge and they're standing there in their pajamas and he's talking to people and he gets the bug. He gets the show business bug. He's, I think, in music school because he wants to be a trumpet player. But he is, in the meantime, the milkman to the stars.
Developing his musical talent is not what is going to make him famous. It's going to be hanging out with Groucho in his pajamas.
That's right.
How he got into his pajamas, he doesn't know.
And really knowing about the milk and telling the story of the milk. But in the course of milk delivery, he meets and befriends Wally Amos, who is
the famous Amos guy?
The famous Amos cookie guy, who at the time is the only black agent in Hollywood. He's an agent for William Morris. And
I forgot he was an agent.
Yeah.
Is he not yet a cookie magnate?
Well, so he's he's like always moving and shaking, and he was.
So he's got some cookies in the fire.
That's right. He was famous around the William Morris agency for his famous cookie recipe, and he would bring cookies in for birthdays and Christmas. People were always saying, "Wally, you got to do something with these cookies. These cookies are too big to just keep secret." And so Wally Amos starts his first little shop. And at the time, this is part of the famous Amos story, it was the first cookie store. No one, now Burien has 3 cookie stores.
I feel like it's Utah's fault. Utah keeps exporting cookie chains.
They're really into making cookies.
I guess
It does seem very Utah.
No other vices. It's kind of vaguely wholesome.
I mean, we have cookie restaurants here, and they're like full-on rivalries. Like, where do you get your cookies? Do you go to the place that has small but cheaper and delicious cookies, or do you go to the big cookie place that's got those cookies that aren't fully cooked all the way through? And you and I have talked about the ultimate cookie.
We have Seattle cookie preferences.
Yeah. What's you decided you didn't like the ultimate
I don't
cookie.
love the Met Market cookie.
Yeah.
I like that it has walnuts, which is controversial.
Right.
But I don't like how soggy it is in the middle.
It's really, really, the chocolate is just like wet.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Anyway, so Treb starts working with Mr. Amos.
Sure, milk and cookies go together.
That's right. And he becomes part of he's working as a milkman in the morning, and then he's going over to famous Amos. And Wally Amos says, after the success of his cookie store, says, "Hey, let's expand. I'm going to have a cookie empire."
I've decided to have a cookie empire.
Yeah, he builds a cookie making space where they're going to make cookies for all the famous Amos cookie stores. And he puts Treb in charge of his, cookie manufacturing.
He's running the ghost kitchen.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of the balloon room.
Right. And Treb is still, in his early 20s. He's a young guy, but he's got moxie, and he's milkman to the stars, cookie maker extraordinaire, former balloon boy.
I'm not sure I knew that famous Amos was black. Am I just learning this now? Has everyone been talking about this but me? Maybe I'm super enlightened. I don't even see cookie race.
It is known. It's part of their backstory, but also
that it's a successful black-owned business.
I think that the name Amos suggests a kind of Bartles and James, like 2 old white guys with suspenders, kind of like it's a sort of classical.
Except it's complicated a little by the Amos and Andy problem here.
Right. Okay. Right.
Interesting.
But no, I think when famous Amos first swept the nation, it was part of the story was this is a black-owned business.
What's the other one? Isn't there a woman's cookie chain? No.
Oh, like large cookie chain? I mean, there's so many cookie chains.
Not like the new ones. Wasn't there some other mall one, but named for a woman? Oh. I don't know.
What was the one that's sort of cinnamon rolls? Cinnabon.
Cinnabon.
Yeah, that's not named for a woman. Unless her name was
if her name was
Mrs. Cinnabon.
Could be.
Yeah.
I'll never know what I'm thinking of.
But in the course of of making Famous Amos cookies, of course, there were Famous Amos cookies that, he expanded his cookie recipe to include cookies that had nuts and cookies that had all kinds of whatever it is you put in cookies, grasshoppers.
Probably not.
And they sourced their nuts from an LA nut institution, Garby's Nut House. And the owner of Garby's Nut House, a guy named Dave Klein, really took to Treb and became kind of like a father figure to Treb. Said, I love the way you're running Famous Amos's cookie manufacturing plant, Treb. You've got what it takes. And let me advise you. And Treb had, even then, his time as a balloon boy was really, really foundational to him. He felt like it was not only his first job, but he had a lot of ideas about balloons. He had
was
a lot
still
of
thinking balloons.
He's thinking balloons, and he's thinking
you can take the boy out of the balloon room, but
he's thinking that balloons are not. There's a lot more to balloons than just guys standing out there dressed as an elf selling balloons at Disney.
He thinks they have untapped potential?
He does. And I think he was maybe running a little bit of a side business where he was decorating people's birthday parties with balloons. But it wasn't, people didn't want to think about like Treb's innovations in balloons. He would say like, oh, what if I did this? And people are like, just keep, hey, balloon guy, just keep making centerpieces.
Like, were there balloon animals already?
Well, the funny thing is, like, the Aztecs were making animals out of balloons back when they were presumably the bladders of their enemies.
They were twisting the bladder to look back into the kind of animal they took the bladder from?
But balloon animals that we think of, long balloons twisted into animals, were more of a magic thing, like a magician gag. You'd get those guys that were doing card tricks and juggling and tying balloon animals.
So clowns were already kind of doing that?
It was a clown thing and a circus thing, and I'm sure Walt Disney was against it. And it was not part of Treb's background story. But Treb started to kind of independently go overboard in decorating kids' birthday parties and found that the reaction was really positive. People would come in and say, and Treb, it was kind of almost a lost leader.
Like, what does that mean? Like, instead of putting up 2 balloons in each corner, he'd put a wall of balloons, or
he hadn't yet invented a wall of balloons, but he would just he recognized that the more balloons, the more fun.
Hey.
And there were other things you could do. You could put them here, put them there. But Dave Klein, sort of his mentor as a business person, really understood, I guess, that Treb was onto something in thinking about, like, what, balloons are just not, they're just underutilized. And then Dave Klein invented the Jelly Belly.
Wait, the gourmet jelly bean?
Yeah, the Jelly Belly.
Based on Treb thinking that balloons were underutilized? Or he just happened to invent?
Dave was already working at Garby's Nut House or owning Garby's Nut House, and he was also somebody thinking out of the box.
What if jelly beans were fancy?
He invents the Jelly Belly in 1976, and then Dave Klein is printing money selling Jelly Bellies.
Boy, Jelly Belly fever was real.
It was real.
Like,
people loved
when
Jelly
they were
Bellies.
first available in your city, you'd be like, this Jelly Belly is blueberry, but this one's pina colada.
Yeah, and they were like, all of a sudden, jelly beans had dots in them and were all these different kinds of, they seemed fancy.
There was a trend at the time of, like, I remember flavored popcorn stores popping up around this time too, no pun intended, and I wonder if Jelly Belly was the first.
Oh, I wonder.
Because, it had the Reagan seal of approval, and then people were like, well, what if Jelly Belly, but...
That's right. Reagan loved jelly beans.
Yeah, and particularly, like that was his brand, because they were the fancy ones on Air Force One.
And it was an era of a great expansion in what would have formerly been just staple foods. And, like, nobody needed a fancy cookie because grandma still made cookies. And then all of a sudden it was like, no. No, we need cookies downtown. Cookies are actually a thing.
All I know is in 1950, 60, 70, there was one flavor of Fig Newton. And suddenly, in the 80s, there were 6 flavors of Fig Newton, whether you wanted that or not.
Well, so Dave, with his new Jelly Belly money, says, listen, we're going to start... Treb, I'm going to invest in you. And he gave Treb $1,000. And Treb was like, what do I call it? And Dave said, look, I'm a master brander. I branded Jelly Bellies.
It rhymes.
And and they had, they sat there around the dinner table and Dave was like, here's $1,000 and your business is called Balloon Art by Treb. And Treb was like, genius. Like this.
I love it.
I couldn't have branded it better. Balloon Art by Treb. Because Treb had already been part of his centerpiece kind of thing and part of his like, I'm gonna decorate with balloons in a way that you never would have thought, was that he was kind of using balloons to do logos, balloons in ways that nobody had done. And he coined the term balloon art. If you can imagine, there was a time...
I mean, we had balloons and we had art.
We had balloons
but
and
art. But it took one genius to be like, hey, what if this trade show had its logo in balloons?
That's right.
Instead of paper.
So he starts getting jobs decorating for events. Balloon Art by Treb starts to get a reputation around Los Angeles. Like, he's the guy. If you need balloons, he's the man.
Because once you've seen it at an event, you're going to be like, hey, we should have that at our party. Or like... Mom, can't we have the balloons like they had?
Exactly. And he's getting invited to do events more than just for kids, like conventions and so forth. And in 1979, when he's still only 25 years old, he is hired to do the birthday party for Cher and her husband at the time, Greg Allman's 3-year-old child, Elijah Blue. Elijah Blue, of course, now in his late 40s and is the singer of industrial metal band Dead Z.
But without whom we would not have many balloon innovations.
What happened at Elijah Blue's 3rd birthday party
changed the course of American history.
It really did. Treb was putting balloons, helium balloons in columns.
Oh, yeah. I guess that didn't exist, right? Those big semicircles of balloons that people go through.
And that's what happened. He had these big columns of balloons, and he brought them together and built an arch.
Imagine the scene in the movie where, like, you see him looking at. There's a shot of the column, and then you see his eyes again, and then he looks over to the other column, and you see his eyes again, and suddenly he's like, "What if?"
What if?
So the first balloon arch was created for young Elijah Blue.
That's right. It was created at this birthday party hosted by Cher. And Cher loved the balloon arch and had her picture taken with Treb under the balloon arch.
I'm taking notes, by the way. Disney hates circuses.
Right.
Cher likes balloon arches.
Cher loves balloon art. And so on the strength of Cher and Greg Allman, and presumably the thrill in the eyes of Elijah, now these balloon columns and balloon arches are what everybody in Los Angeles wants. And Treb's business really takes off.
It is a toxic competitive city, so you can see why everyone would want to be one-upping the previous party.
Right. And Treb is way ahead of everybody else with his balloon sourcing, his balloon knowledge. Like, sure, you think you can build a balloon arch, but then just go ahead and try.
It won't be a balloon arch by Treb.
Yeah, like how? Well, and also, like, let's see your balloon arch, smarty pants.
Have you thought about the physics of this?
Yeah, you're going to have to get Treb to design a balloon arch for you and then reverse engineer it. But Treb's standing right there. He's not going to let you tear apart his balloon arch. He takes it with him when he goes.
Proprietary technology.
And so, based on this, and I think he contracted with them for $50 to do this birthday party. And Cher loved it so much, she tipped him $50. So he made $100 for this balloon arch. His balloon stuff takes off, and pretty soon he's making $1 million a year.
Wow.
because he's doing balloons for everybody. He's doing balloon spirals. He's doing balloon columns, logos. He starts doing balloon sculptures.
If Cher tips him 10,000 times, that's $1 million right there.
That's $1 million. But if you think about all the people Cher knows, all the people that want that Cher thing
Right.
to their balloon stuff, and then he's got now a relationship with pretty much all of Hollywood, because I'm sure Dean Martin is still like, hey, Milkman, I want a balloon arch at
Oh,
mine.
you're in balloons now.
Yeah, exactly. And he gets back in contact with Disney, who's like, this balloon thing, like, this is really hot. We want some of this balloon action over here at Disney.
Plus, he's their homegrown guy.
Yeah. And there's a guy who had been working for Disney for a long time as their events director by the name of Tommy Walker. And Tommy and Walt fall out because Walt famously doesn't like circuses and he doesn't like anybody. And a lot of the people that worked for Disney over the years, he kind of churned through them.
Yeah.
And Tommy's like, okay, screw you, and stomps out of Disney. And balloon art by Treb, now the biggest thing in town, Tommy Walker gets the job of directing the 1984 World's Fair in Louisiana, in New Orleans. And he calls Treb and says, I want balloons at the World's Fair. I want you to go all out. And Treb just blows,
Blank check.
really blows a lot of balloons and is building stuff.
He blows balloons and mines.
And it is blowing minds. And then Tommy gets the job of the 1984 Olympic opening ceremony. 1984 Olympics.
I remember watching.
Famously in
LA.
Los Angeles.
No communists.
And Treb designs the entire field is Olympic rings, the Olympic rings and the whole Olympics logo, but in balloons.
So I would have watched that.
You would have.
And I guess I would have thought, wow, it's one of these things they do with balloons. And I didn't realize I was witnessing the invention of it.
This is the first of these like kabloom sort of balloon events that the whole world suddenly realized the potential of balloons that only Treb saw. And now he is such a big deal that the Disney company says, it's the 30th anniversary of Disney, 1985, and we want you to...
30th anniversary of Disneyland, probably.
Disneyland.
Yeah.
And we want you to, to handle the big party, the big Disney party. And Treb devises, you're going to love this, the whole of Main Street is covered with arches, giant arches, 75-foot balloon arches. And as the ceremony commences, and this is at night, and the balloon arches are all lit, right? So these glowing balloon arches, they separate in the middle, and the sides of the arches go up, and then much larger red balloons pop out the top, and they become candles, birthday candles, lining Main Street, but out of balloons. And the balloons are 75 feet high, and then each
interactive.
side.
It's moving in time and space.
That's right. And then the huge balloons at the top make the whole structures 80 plus feet tall. And if you can picture, and I've seen the video of these balloons, and it's kind of the arms go up one at a time, like whoom, 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 as it goes down the street.
Oh, nice.
And it just looks, it's very impressive. If you had been there in 1985, you would have said, balloon art.
I'm dropping out of college and going into balloons.
That's it. And on the strength of that experience, over the course then of balloon art by Trev, he ends up doing 18 Super Bowls, 5 Oscars. He essentially does all of the Democratic and Republican convention balloon drops, which became a big part of the conventions.
He was early in the balloon drop scene.
He was. The only balloon drop he didn't do was in 2004. which famously televised John Kerry standing on the stage like, yay, confetti raining down. And they actually said on TV, and now the balloon drop. And the balloons didn't drop.
Oh, wow.
And John Kerry's standing there on stage like, this is it, arms in the air.
Big moment.
And the balloons just, I don't know what happened, but they didn't.
Do you think Kerry wins Ohio and therefore the presidency if those balloons drop? We don't know. Like if Treb had been on the scene, could he have changed the course of the 21st century?
There is an interview with Treb where he's like, yeah, I did every convention except one. And then he looks, kind of at the camera and it's like serious burn.
Yeah. Don't go with the discount guy.
Well, so, but one of the things that happened at Disney after the success of the birthday candles was Disney said, let's get into frequent omnibus topic, the Guinness Book of World Records by releasing the largest number of balloons in history.
And people were already doing this, right? Because I was aware in the 80s, sometimes you'd see a helium balloon going overhead and I'd be like, do you think a kid lost that at a supermarket opening? Or do you think it was one of these big things?
Yeah, exactly. It was where, we've got 1,000 balloons and it's the washer dryer sale of the century. But Treb was the only one capable of really doing a mass balloon opening. He put together that Disney said, let's do 1 million balloons.
Whoa. Is that even possible?
Well, this is the thing. Treb actually put together 1,200,000 balloons. He had balloon boys working day and night, filling up these balloons. And in 1985, at Disneyland, they released what ended up being 1,100,000, plus balloons, which did fill the skies.
Wow.
And the thing about Treb is he used American-made balloons made by the Pioneer Balloon Company out of latex. And the story of latex is that technically it is biodegradable.
Right.
American latex balloons do biodegrade.
So this was part of the discussion at the time. Like, is this eco-friendly, even in 1985, to do these massive releases?
I mean, I think people were aware that 1 million balloons could, there was already Earth Day by then.
Yeah.
1 million balloons could complicate matters. The thing about a latex balloon is it's almost never pure latex because latex degrades really fast.
So it's got to be full of other awful chemicals
So
to
they
keep
put
it a balloon?
plasticizers and other things in so that the balloon lasts, and those things make them not biodegradable. So at one level, they did advertise these as biodegradable, environmentally safe stuff. But there have been environmental organizations that put a bunch of balloons in seawater and see how long they are still balloons. And they're still balloons 6 years later.
We're still finding Disneyland balloon release balloons in the Arctic?
I don't think that, but
But was there any of the discourse that we hear now? I don't want to jump ahead, but isn't there like, what if a dolphin eats this balloon?
Well, I think anecdotally it started to be clear that when balloons land in the ocean or other places in the environment, they're very attractive to. I mean, if a turtle sees some floating flotsam,
It's going to try to eat it, or
the turtle's going to assume
smell it, or
that's
something.
a flower or a seaweed or something, and lots of other creatures. And even when balloons do degrade in pieces, a fish is going to see it and say, "What a funny little thing!" And then it's got a balloon in it. And if you eat a balloon, it doesn't help you eat other things or survive.
Is that what the balloon manufacturers say?
I mean,
they don't necessarily help turtles survive.
So they for sure started to see animals. I mean, it's still very true. Animals made sick by balloons, and big balloon releases are now illegal in California, Connecticut, Florida, Tennessee, Virginia, and Maryland.
Oh, it's still a matter of state law and for the most part still legal. I assumed the culture had kind of moved on.
I think the culture has, but there are still plenty of balloons in our nation's skies. And part of that is because of a Balloon Art by Treb event after the big Disney release of 1,100,000 balloons in Cleveland, Ohio, in 1986, a year later. The United Way, as part of a fundraiser, said, let's beat Disney at their own game. Let's release 1.5 million balloons over the skies of Cleveland on this autumn day. And kids will sell, basically, they will sell people balloons or the right to a balloon or the naming rights. For $1, you get 2 balloons in the 1.5 million balloon.
Oh, I see. Do they put your name on it or anything?
I don't think they put your name on it, but
That'd be a lot of work.
You had your certificate, your certificate of appreciation.
It's like when you own a star.
And it was like a community event. Like, hey, chip in $10, buy 20 balloons. You're going to help us set a Guinness Book of World Records. And in 1986, I think Cleveland was probably trying everything to get to burnish the good name of the city of Cleveland, which had only recently seen its river catch on fire.
Right.
And so in downtown Cleveland, in Cleveland Public Square, a full city block, they set about inflating, with an army of volunteer teens, balloon boys and girls. They set about inflating 1.5 million balloons, which was they had like a one-piece net that covered an entire city block, and they filled it with balloons to the tune of 3 stories tall. This is a lot of balloons. And on the day of the big release, there were 100,000 people there. It was a huge event. And they could see there was kind of a rainstorm approaching on the horizon. And as the rainstorm got closer, the organizers were like, listen, we got to get these balloons in the air. This rainstorm is going to rain out our balloon party. And so, like a little bit in advance of when they had intended to release the balloons, they pulled back the net and 1.5 million balloons soared into the sky and immediately encountered the cold front that was bringing the rainstorm.
Right.
And in encountering the cold front, the balloons did not sail up into space and go to the moon or fly far, far away.
You want to imagine them just going forever.
Yeah, forever.
But that was complicated here.
The balloons, and think about 1.5 million balloons. It's truly a storm of balloons, and the cold front causes them to go, and so all of a sudden, there's balloons, but they're not flying away. They're
hovering like drones.
They're like basically become low cloud cover of like 1 million balloons.
Cleveland is socked in by balloons.
They closed the lakefront airport. There are car wrecks happening all over Cleveland because it's just like a storm of balloons. The Coast Guard is called out. There's balloons just clogging the whole city. And it's a disaster. And then the lake, the Great Lake, that's famously right there by Cleveland.
I'm going to say Lake Erie.
There you go.
Whew.
Good work. The lake now is full of balloons, which is, not what you want from a lake.
It's a little more obviously an environmental catastrophe than what if these don't decompose somewhere far, far away.
Yeah. And if you look at a picture of Lake Erie covered with balloons, I mean, there's really a balloon every 5 feet at first.
Do you know what color they were?
Every color.
Oh, okay.
All the colors. It was a merry, merry event. But one of the problems was that 2 fishermen in a small boat had gone missing. And there was an ongoing search for the fishermen as hundreds of thousands of balloons descended onto the lake. And one thing that, of all the things really that you could imagine that looks the most like a floating fisherman struggling to survive is a like half submerged balloon. And so the search for the fishermen, who were named Raymond Broderick and Bernard Sulzer, the Coast Guard that had, was already searching for them. Like the helicopters couldn't fly because the sky was full of balloons, and the people searching the surface of the water, and again, you have to see a picture of it. There was no way that you could.
So is this a balloon release with a body count?
So the two fishermen die.
Oh no!
Yeah,
I was kind of joking.
The two fishermen, wash up on the shores of Lake Erie,
and blame the balloons.
And one of the wives or one of the widows of the fishermen actually sues the United Way, which is not a thing you should do generally.
Well, they're the ones who released the balloons.
Yeah, unless your husband dies. And they settle out of court. Years later, I think the Coast Guard came forward and said, actually, these guys were not going to be found. They were already drowned, and the balloons didn't play any role in it. But that kind of put a little bit of a damper on giant balloon releases. I don't think any attempt has been made to and I'm not sure whether Cleveland.
Yeah, does that count?
Whether
they got off the ground.
I think it does count
slightly,
but I think it's one of those, as you've said before, one of those Guinness Book of World Records that maybe you're not allowed to do anymore. Yeah,
they are not accepting new submissions.
Exactly. But balloon art by Treb actually continues on, and one of the late success stories of balloon art by Treb.
Treb's still alive.
Treb is still alive. He's a young man, actually. I mean, he's a boomer of the 50s variety, not even a 40s boomer.
Yeah.
If you think about, he was in high school. He was a freshman in high school in 1969. He's not even 20 years older than I am.
Yeah.
Treb, in conjunction, so there's a Japanese balloon making company called Takara Kosan Company. The Takara Kosan Company had pioneered on their own a balloon where they took a clear balloon that was 11 inches big, and they put a colored balloon that was 9 inches big inside.
Ooh, I've seen these.
And so
they sell them at Disneyland now, but Mickey shaped.
Right. And this was kind of proposed. Treb and his balloon associates were shown this balloon in the 80s, right about the time of the Cleveland balloon
massacre.
And Treb loved the idea, and he took it to Disney and said, I think this is the future, and the future of balloons. And Disney said, nah, it was too expensive.
Wow.
And the whole process of inflating a balloon inside a balloon would have confused the balloon boys.
The balloon room would have quit in solidarity.
Yeah. And so, the idea like sort of dropped off the map, and some of these like deflated balloons inside of balloons ended up in a desk drawer. Ended up in the desk drawer of a man named Henry Unger, who had a big firm, an entertainment style events firm that was working with Treb. And a decade later, in 1996, Henry found one of these balloons and went over to Treb, Balloon Art by Treb, and was like, "Remember this? Wasn't this a thing?"
It's like 10 years later.
And Treb was like, "You know what? That is a thing." By the 1990s, foil balloons, and I'm sure you remember, if you don't remember the first time, you remember when all of a sudden foil balloons were a thing. And the thing about foil balloons is you could print anything you wanted on a foil balloon. It could say happy birthday. It could be a picture of Goofy.
Right.
And so foil balloons kind of took over, swept the land. This was the new fun party thing. I think there were still balloon arches happening at weddings and funerals. But foil balloons had swept the nation. And by the 90s, Disney and Disneyland only sold foil balloons. There weren't the classic balloons anymore. They were seen, I guess, as, ye oldie balloon umbrellas, no longer the fun candle balloons.
Disneyland's always a tension between nostalgia and what would young people actually want.
That's right. But Trevor goes then to the Takara Kosan company and says, what if we put a Mickey Mouse balloon inside of a clear balloon?
I didn't realize when I just saw these at Disneyland, it was because that was the only place in America that was brave enough to try this.
And so they said, the Kosan company said, no, it's too expensive. That we'll never be able to do it. And Trevor had gone to Disney with a sample of it and said, what do you think about this? And Disney had said, that now seems like a thing we can sell.
This time he's got them.
And so he got the Kosan company to agree to manufacture these balloons. He went to Disneyland and trained a new generation of balloon children.
Wait, they're still blowing those up on site, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And from the introduction of what are called glass house balloons in 1997, they now outsell all other balloons at Disneyland by a factor of 3 or more.
Because why would you get a basic balloon
Right.
when there's a Mickey in a balloon?
You could get a double balloon. And what's very interesting about that is the outside balloon enables the inside balloon to stay inflated, and the outside balloon is made out of not latex. It's made out of
Something tougher.
And the double balloon, the glasshouse balloon, actually qualifies as a toy because it lasts so long. You can take your glasshouse balloon home and play with it for weeks
Really?
and months. And so glasshouse balloons become a toy. They're a massive seller, and gradually all of what we think of as the very, very cautious, tentative balloon markets of Asian Disneylands and foreign Disneylands, it takes him much longer to get them to adopt this expensive technology. But once glasshouse balloons expand to the other Disneylands, and I think as of this time, the only Disneyland that doesn't have glasshouse balloons is Paris Disneyland because they're contentious, the French. But now glasshouse balloons have swept the Asian balloon markets, and glasshouse balloons are a major driver of the balloon industry. So much so that as of today, Balloon Art by Treb, still a going concern, has entered into what I think they hoped was the viral toy market.
What's a viral toy? Like fidget spinners?
Yeah, and Beanie Babies and
Right.
and every
Just fads.
every year there's a new toy fad.
Yeah.
And Treb's idea was My Pet Balloon. And you can go look up My Pet Balloon. The idea being that, or I guess it's My Own Pet Balloon. The idea being that there's a sort of Beanie Baby level, like little horses and kitties, and the balloons last so long.
And it's yours like a Tamagotchi, and you don't have to think about its imminent death because it will last.
It lasts long enough that probably 99% of My Own Pet Balloon buyers are
lost.
already bored of the pet balloon by the time.
I can't remember. Those are helium balloons, right?
Yeah.
Like they're floaty.
Yeah, although the helium does eventually kind of go through permeate the thing, but somehow the balloon stays. I'm not sure if My Own Pet Balloon is helium-y, but
They're the right age, they're the right duration to teach kids about death.
I guess so. Like, oh, balloony.
Balloony only lasted a few months, but that's just like your goldfish is going to die soon too.
We did one Christmas get a balloon R2-D2 that was almost certainly from the Treb Heining balloon art by Treb
Empire
universe. And it was R2D, I was going to say life-sized, but of course R2-D2 has no life. He is a robot.
But he could have the size that he is in real life.
It is a real-life-sized R2-D2 with R2-D2 legs that are their own balloons.
Also inflated.
And we had it at Christmas, the R2-D2 balloon, and that R2-D2 balloon lasted around the house, fully inflated, for months and months.
I remember this.
You remember the balloon because it was down in the studio.
Was it annoying, or were you happy to have a blow-up R2-D2?
Well, it was hilarious, but then at a certain point, you have done all the things. You can have all the experiences of an R2-D2, a balloon-sized R2-D2, just as I think if we had a real R2-D2, we would run out of things for R2 to do. We're not trying to destroy any Death Stars.
You don't need him to repair your X-Wing fighter.
No, we don't have... He's not going to follow us around. Like, can you imagine me showing up at your Christmas party with my own R2 unit?
I was surprised you brought your sister, much less your droid. And that concludes Balloon Man. Entry 094.DE1501, certificate number 32691 in the omnibus. Who knew that one guy just changed the face of American balloons?
He did.
One unheralded guy. Did he pay you off to do this show? Or was he like, celebrate me, John?
No, but I bet you, based on our past experience in Omnibus, I bet you somebody listening is like, I know Treb Heining.
Somebody knows him.
And then he's going to say, hey, or our listener, he or she is going to say, hey, Treb, you got to listen to this show. It's all about you. And then within a year, he
will sue us.
No, I bet you Treb's going to write us and say, we do make biodegradable balloons or whatever. He's going to have something to say. But he seems like a nice guy and a good. The thing is, environmental groups now say, do not release any balloon. Really what you should have instead of balloons is pinwheels and maybe fire dancers.
Is there something you're allowed to put in the air? No, right?
Not if it's going to float away and get into the ocean and kill turtles.
I mean, now they have those drone shows where the drones form these 3D forms.
I bet you that's what it is.
And those are pretty eco-conscious, right?
Yeah, they're all battery-powered. So, I mean, I wonder one of those drone shows that has 1,000 drones, whether they're using the same amount of energy that
Right.
your electric car uses to get you from hither to thither.
Is it going to be like, actually the carbon from fireworks would have been better than all the energy that battery life that powered this thing.
Yeah, but I think the coal that's being burned to earn 1 Bitcoin is probably more than every drone in the world.
Every time you have AI draw you something, you just got rid of 3 acres of the Amazon, probably. Yeah, you can, so send us, if you know Treb, please let us know. Send it to P.O. Box 55744, Shoreline, Washington 98155, or pretty much any other zip code, it turns out.
I've told you that I mentioned Captain and Tennille on a podcast one time,
Yes.
in a flattering way.
And she reached out, right?
Tennille wrote me. She sent me one of their earliest promo photos of her and the captain, playing in a bar. Like a framed, like a picture. I was just like, wow, I'm on good terms with Tennille.
Why are you still calling her Tennille? Call her Tony.
I mean, I feel like she's earned.
Ms. Tennille.
She's earned Ms. Tennille. But yeah, Tony. I mean, she signed her letter, Tony. I should put that up on my wall of exciting show business stuff.
A letter from Tony Tennille.
A letter from Tony Tennille.
We're online at Omnibus Project, probably. So yeah, send things to that address that I just read. We got a note from Richard, who apologizes for his handwriting. I'm legally blind and can't see the little blue lines, but
he still can write us a letter,
and he's doing okay. Look, it
looks beautiful.
He's doing a great job staying with the lines. Because you mentioned, I think we both mentioned Doonesbury pretty often on the show. He must be of our generation. He says, Mike and the gang were my first teachers. Hope you get some enjoyment from this. And he sent us a hardcover of the Doonesbury Chronicles.
Oh, cool. Do we both already own it? I don't think I have it.
I don't have that one.
Oh,
I think
now we're going to fight over it.
That's right. I think at some point I bought the big. Remember there was a complete Doonesbury that had a CD-ROM. But of course, it's not complete in that came out 30 years ago. Right. So, thank you both for your entertaining and informative podcast. He'd love us to explain the Electoral College. Okay, like just on a show, or maybe come to his house and do it.
Well, I feel like you have been so generous in giving me when somebody sends us one thing, you're often like you gave me that map that had been used in the Vietnam War.
Well, that was cool, like, the silk.
Yeah, and I said, oh, well, you don't want this. And you were like, yeah, I wrote a book about maps. And I was like, oh. So I don't know. If you want the Doonesbury book, I won't keep it.
I think you can have the Doonesbury. But thank you so much, Micah. You can email us at theomnibusproject@gmail.com. Send us your thoughts about Doonesbury or balloons or anything in between. Maybe a big balloon shaped like a Doonesbury.
Oh, yeah.
We were in New York this year for the Macy's parade, and my publisher is on 6th, so it overlooks the parade route.
Yep.
So we went up to her office and kind of watched.
I've watched the parade from that office.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
From the Simon & Schuster building
Yeah,
there?
fantastic. I was up there with somebody that worked there, and I took my little girl, and we watched the parade. It's the best place to see it.
Did the same thing with my kid.
It was cold.
It was very rainy this year. And it reminded me of a friend of mine who, after years of wanting to be in the parade, because you can be a balloon carrier. They need a ton of people to wrangle balloons.
Really?
He finally got an in. I think it was like he and his husband both were balloon carriers. And these are gay men in their 70s who are hoping for Mickey or Superman or something.
Yeah. And they end up trying to wrestle SpongeBob.
No, they got worse. They got some Netflix anime guy. They got Monkey D. Luffy or something making his parade debut, and they were like, Monkey D. Luffy. Plus, it turns out you don't want to get up at 4 a.m. to do balloons in the cold outside the Museum of Natural History. So they regretted it. But there's a fun. So what I'm saying is, you could have a Doonesbury-shaped balloon in an alternate universe Macy's parade.
I think that the cultural moment of Doonesbury has passed.
What year could that have been?
86?
Yeah, there's like a Zonker high above Herald Square.
It would work for Zonker, right? He'd be high up in the sky.
You can find other Futurelings online just by looking for the word Futurelings. I don't have to tell you how the internet works. But if you don't support the show already via the Patreon, maybe I do have to explain how this works, how there would, in fact, be no free entertainment for you, if not for others, showing their dedication to the culture of Omnibus and our enterprising project here by supporting the show at patreon.com/omnibusproject. You'll have access to free addenda shows every month, early ad-free access to the show every week, and a panoply of other perks and prizes, better than balloons. Patreon.com/omnibusproject.
Futurelings, from our vantage point in your distant past, we have no idea how long our civilization survived, but even if our civilization collapses tomorrow, there will still be balloons floating in the ocean, probably for
Forever.
1,000 years.
You're welcome.
Although, it's possible that some turtle will survive eating a balloon and become the super species that's listening to this show right now.
That's the thing. Other turtles just didn't have enough plasticizers in their brains to turn them into...
Allow them to survive 1,000 years.
Because the theory about how some ape ate a mushroom and that's how consciousness arose, right? The Terrence McKenna stoned ape stuff.
Right.
Imagine a turtle just inhaling a balloon and suddenly he's like, wait, I have self-awareness.
Whoa.
Why am I so slow?
I can just get out and walk around.
I could be the dominant species.
All these bicycles that are just laying in the sand from the apocalypse, I can ride it all of a sudden.
You're welcome, turtle, super turtle.
Well, if the worst comes soon, this retorting, like all our retortings, may have been our final word. But if Providence allows, we wish you many goods and cheese and hope to be back with you soon for another entry in the Omnibus.